Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
And welcome back.
So we see this headline, and first thing I woke up to this morning was a text from Mark, Wages World, saying, "Did you see it? Did you see it?"
Yes, he sure did.
Yeah. The biggest solar flare in more than 3 years occurred today, November 29th. And man, we are in some interesting times. Tomorrow is the eclipse, the 30th, as we've been talking about. And every time you look at anything headline-wise, things are being revealed, even in blackout conditions. Now, this is, again, a shortwave radio blackout. This is the third one we've seen in a month, guys. And you could see the area that this impacted here.
That's a pretty big area.
And there again, as we go up in the categories and the intensity, it brings more likelihood to actually causing blackouts and taking down parts of the grid.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that we're going to have spotty issues. It's not going to be anything huge, but there's going to be like little inconveniences.
Well, there's been a lot of inconveniences in people's life around this globe in 2020, and 2020 is going out with a bang.
Oh boy, is it.
This will be an interesting New Year's celebration because I think people are going to be like, thank God, good riddance.
I know, they're going to be like super grateful or they'll be able to take a big deep breath.
Yeah, and put out the intentions, of course, that 2021 will bring better things. But of course, this is, part of the great unveiling, part of the great cleansing going on, part of the great purging going on. As when we talk about astrological perspectives, you got so much happening at one time. And here, this one, look what time it came out.
Interesting.
1:11 p.m. UTC. And it's a magnitude 4.4. Look at the numbers.
I don't know. What does that tell you when it has numerology like that?
Everything is part of this matrix.
Ah, it is.
It's part of the programming of this computer simulation, perhaps. And you are getting stuff all about AI in your meditation and, the challenges that are going to be imposed as, there are forces that literally want to merge AI with humanity.
Well, they do. It's very important to them because they want to have control. So the more they can keep us plugged into that matrix, the less we're going to be able to contact or connect to our higher selves and find out who we truly are.
So this one sent a significant CME into space, but the storm cloud will not hit Earth as the source of the flare is an unnumbered sunspot behind the sun's eastern limb, and the sun is really waking up now. It's definitely, obviously it's changing, and a few days ago you had another sunspot erupted while facing Earth. And how are X-ray solar flares classified? A solar flare is an explosion on the sun. Such an eruption occurs when the energy stored magnetic fields is suddenly released. The resulting burst of radiation is hurled into space, and it goes from radio waves to X-rays to gamma rays. And you know what happens when the Hulk got hit with gamma rays?
Is that when he turned green?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and again, there's so much hidden in all of the media, and even in some ancient stories that we've had passed down. So yeah, you have X-class flares. They're major events that can trigger planet-wide radio blackouts and long-lasting radiation storms. M-class flares, medium-sized events that can cause brief radio blackouts that affect Earth's polar regions. C-class flares are small events with few noticeable consequences on Earth. And, when we go and take a look over at NOAA, you could see that little peak. We haven't seen, much like that in a long time.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's been a lot of activity. It's waking up. And then talking about activity, more fireballs.
Now, this is so spectacular. I love this one. For some reason, it just has a little extra pizzazz to it. It's amazing.
So, automatically it's assumed that these things are always just meteors. But are they? Are they just meteors, or are they something else?
Well, there was one we were looking at this morning, and what came through was it was opening up a portal for another entity to come through, a rather large entity, an angel of pretty big, pretty big angel.
And when you look at this again, you see them flash like that, and people take it to be that they're exploding. But is it more like I've made references to, go to warp speed?
Right.
Is it something like opening a portal and then boom, the ship is gone or the being is gone?
Oh, absolutely. This is the story we've been told since we were little about what these things are. And of course, we're just going to automatically believe it because we've never been told anything different.
Well, there's a lot that we've been told that we found out is wrong, completely wrong, complete fabrications. So this is an AMS event that happened over my home state of Connecticut. This sighting was in Lyme, and this is the one that you were talking about. That felt like, boom, it's a portal.
Yes, this one feels like it was opening a portal for an angel. Maybe later I'll go into meditation and try to describe this angel, but it's a rather large entity coming to assist many, many different light workers.
Because, again, look at this, right? It just kind of disappears. It's like it goes through a door and it's gone.
Yep, exactly.
I don't think that's an exploding piece of rock and ice. It just doesn't feel like it to me. Now, is it perhaps, like you were saying, the portal opens and gone?
That's what I'm seeing.
And, we missed reporting about this a few days back. Mysterious object almost collides with jet on approach to UK airport. Shocking report finds the pilots had no time to act and they don't know what it was.
Well, I kind of feel in many ways that was deliberate because I don't see the beings that have that kind of technology. They're not going to risk crashing a whole plane, but they might want to make themselves known.
It was a Category A event and was confirmed as a near miss. Both pilots suddenly saw a bright light and an object which appeared to be moving towards the aircraft almost head on, slightly up and to the left, and the object appeared without warning. There was no time to act. A police helicopter witnessed lanterns in the area. Oh, it's just Chinese lanterns and swap gas from Uranus.
Yes, of course.
So neither of the pilots believed what they saw was a lantern. Investigators found that a definite risk of collision had existed, but thankfully the disaster was avoided. Another near collision event occurred just 3 days prior when a drone came within 3 feet of an Airbus A320, and that's a real issue, as well as all the satellites in the sky nowadays. 186 passengers were on board, some 8,000 feet above Manchester Airport, flying 20 times above the legal limit for privately owned drones. 400 such incidents have been reported in the last 5 years. That's really something to think about if you're out there flying with all the drones out there. And then, how about all the strange sounds that we've had, all these mysterious booms and bangs, over the past 3 years especially. In Dublin, Ireland, they had one, and it shook houses and left locals baffled. Was this another meteorite coming in? Was this some sort of, hypersonic missile test? Or was it, some sort of military plane going through the sound barrier? I don't know.
I think it's Earth making her changes in many, many of these instances.
Interesting. A big boom, another big boom, had effects on houses in a 2-kilometer radius along the M50 in the area. Many had wondered if it came from the motorway, but there's no events reported. So very curious. And as we see here, we have mysterious booms continuing across the U.S., Canada, and elsewhere. So in the last 3 days, you had reported mysterious booms in U.S., Canada, and U.K. Origins remain unresolved. Do you have a clue? You have a mysterious loud boom. Shook North Okanagan residents on the 27th around noon. Sounded like a large explosion. So far, nobody seems to know what caused it. Some reported feeling a tremor on Valeview. Others reported hearing a loud mystery boom from as far away as Lavington, Cherryville, and Vernon. According to Earthquakes Canada, there was no earthquake event. No construction going on over there either. Gibraltar hit by a shaking boom in Michigan. And so another explosive sound, similar to thunder, was heard and felt by dozens across a small town, but again, no earthquakes, no storms, no explosions. And then the one we talked about in Dublin. So interesting. Lots of things going on over our heads and under our feet.
It is. And, some of these, not all of these, but some of these actually are entities coming into the ether.
So now when we're talking entities, I know you were talking about angels. And, really, again, an angel is just another interdimensional being of a very high vibratory frequency.
Right.
So it all depends on how we want to classify these things. We could use different words, different terms, but they're conscious beings.
They're very conscious beings, and they're here to help us.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the volcano we were talking about yesterday, and there's video here, pretty impressive eruptions going on.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is again in Indonesia. How about sinkholes? We've had a lot of sinkholes. There was one recently in Florida too, which I didn't mention, but we've seen them in these same areas in Florida, around Tampa, heading towards Orlando. You get these, they just pop up out of nowhere and swallow people's, houses and pools and cars and things like that. And this one's in Midtown Toronto. And this incident occurred. And the thing that's curious is there was like 4 other incidents that occurred with sinkholes recently. So again, this gets me thinking about expanding Earth. We were talking about yesterday mud flood too, liquefaction.
Well, I feel, in many ways, all of these things are happening because the Earth is changing, and we haven't really been able to understand what exactly is going on, when really I feel it's Mother Earth, a little bit of growing pain there.
Yeah, so this one actually caused a crane to collapse. Very curious, and I've done videos on expanding Earth theory. Well, this says the aliens needed it back, but supposedly this thing had welds and stuff, so it was somebody doing it. But again, why? Just for ha-has? Was it some sort of message, like the Georgia Guidestones are a message about, hey, we're really close perhaps to, full-blown disclosure and contact?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as far as why, I don't know, but I couldn't get a read on this from the start. So.
And we talked about the one that was up there, I think in Seattle. Wasn't it Seattle or Portland yesterday? I forget. I think it was Seattle. That appeared like 20 years ago and then disappeared. And you got to wonder, somebody's obviously did this, and I'm sure in this case it's human. Although I start wondering about what type of group would do this and for what purpose again. Is it just for laughs, or is there something else they're trying to say?
Well, maybe they're trying to get us to ask serious questions.
And here we have a mouthless alien mask found. And this is like it dates back to the 5th to 4th millennium BC. So we're talking 6,000 to 7,000 years old. And people think it looks just like a gray. And this is out of Archaeology News Network. There's been so many depictions of what we would take to be alien beings. Now, is it all just, where they eating some funny mushrooms, they didn't realize it, and going off on a trip? Or are they trying to show us things that they had seen and that were, what they thought were important and they had to pass on to succeeding generations? Look what we saw.
Yeah, this is most definitely something that they drew to depict what was around their area, beings that were around them.
So this latest find, this was by Professor Vasil Nikolov and his team, is a mass grave. Days ago, while exploring the bottom of an evaporation pool, archaeologists came across 6 skulls, including children's. It's not known whether the people buried there were killed in some sort of attack or whether it was internal conflict going on, but this find was something that they found very, very interesting. And it gets me thinking about some of the African tribal masks. And then how about the Hopis with their headdresses and their masks, kachinas, depicting, again, what looks to be alien, beings.
Well, they absolutely are trying to express what they have seen with their two eyes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then we got actual skeletons. We talked about the Smithsonian. And really, if you start digging through clippings of, say, the 1800s, 1850s, to like 1900, 1910, as people migrated more and more to the West, they constantly came in contact with these giant bodies, anywhere from 7 to maybe 10 feet tall, giant bodies of beings. And you got to wonder, what type of numbers these beings really, really were. I mean, is it the case that there was millions of them, or maybe just thousands? It's curious. And here we see Sputnik, another interesting head there. Another interesting shaped skull discovered in southern Russia. And we found the Paracas skulls down in South America. Peru is a fascinating place. We got so much going on in Peru, and that is also one of the places that were supposedly a base for the Anunnaki.
Right. I mean, look at this skull. There is so much brain matter in there. These beings had to have been very powerful.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Well, there's nothing to see here. I mean, they just simply slap wood onto the child and deform the skull because it's just is prettier, is what they want us to think. Or, they'll even come out and say, because they wanted to be like the gods. Well, okay, well then, how did they get that concept that the gods had a skull shaped like that? And then we've actually gotten DNA samples that show it's something different. It's not quite Homo sapiens sapiens. So, again, uncovering what has been on this planet. I think of Michael Tellinger standing next to a almost 5 foot long foot. And that they found those up in Siberia. They've also found those down in South Africa area. And then we have feet that are attributed to Hanuman, that are like gigantic. People could lay down inside of them, all over Southeast Asia and India.
Right. It's going to be a little more disclosure, a little more. And at some point, they're just not going to be able to keep covering it up the way they have been.
There's been many species, many humanoid and non-humanoid species on the planet. It's just that when you start looking at the legends, all the artwork, all the sculptures, it's overwhelming. The evidence is overwhelming, and these are not just all quote-unquote demons and things like that, fallen angels. Again, that was limited phraseology. That was limited understanding of exactly what goes on, and how life is abundant, as we keep finding out.
It's so abundant, and these sculptures are just depictions of what other beings have actually seen.
Yeah. And as we know, I mean, when we look to the Indus Valley tradition, they come right out and say that there are countless humanoid species out there, countless. And they also somehow knew the shape of the galaxy, and they also knew the span of the galaxy. The mathematics are amazing. So more and more is being revealed all the time, guys. Thank you so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We can't do it without you guys. Make sure you are subscribed and have the bell clicked, so hopefully you'll actually get a notification every now and then. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.